I want to start by asking you to think back to a moment when you stayed silent, even though every fiber of your being was screaming at you to speak up. Maybe it was in a meeting at work when you saw a colleague being unfairly criticized. Or perhaps it was at a family gathering where outdated traditions clashed with your values. In that moment, did you feel a knot in your stomach? A tightness in your chest? That, my friends, is the physical manifestation of your integrity being challenged. Now, I'm not here to make you feel guilty about those moments. We've all been there. I certainly have. But I am here to explore why those moments matter so much, and how we can find the courage to use our voices when it truly counts. You see, silence is often painted as a virtue. Silence is golden, they say. And sometimes that's true. There's power in listening and reflection, in giving others space to express themselves. But there are also critical moments when silence becomes a weapon. A weapon that, when wielded carelessly, can inflict deep wounds on our communities, our relationships, and even our own sense of self. Today, we're going to dive into 5 specific situations where staying silent is not just the wrong choice, but a betrayal of our integrity. These are moments that demand courage, clarity, and action, principles that are deeply rooted in Stoic philosophy, but resonate across cultures and centuries. Before we begin this journey together, I want to acknowledge something important. Speaking up can be scary. It can be uncomfortable. It can even be dangerous in some situations. I'm not here to minimize those very real concerns, but I am here to suggest that the long-term cost of habitual silence, to our communities, to our relationships, and to our own souls, is far greater than the temporary discomfort of finding our voice. So are you ready to explore the power of your voice? Let's dive in. Situation number 1. When injustice is happening. Injustice isn't just an abstract concept. It's a slow-acting poison that seeps into the foundation of our communities and relationships, eroding trust, dignity, and fairness. To remain silent in the face of injustice isn't neutrality. It's an active choice to let that poison spread unchecked. The ancient Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What's not good for the hive is not good for the bee." This simple statement encapsulates a profound truth. Allowing harm to persist anywhere within a community ultimately harms everyone within it, including those who stay silent. So why do we choose silence in these moments? Often, it's out of fear. Fear of confrontation, fear of retaliation, fear of standing alone. These fears, while deeply human, can paralyze us and make us complicit in the very harm we hope to avoid. Yet there's a cruel irony in this silence. While it may feel like a way to preserve peace or avoid conflict, it almost always creates deeper chaos. Silence is a breeding ground for injustice, and injustice, like a festering wound, only grows worse when ignored. I learned this lesson the hard way early in my career. A colleague of mine was unjustly blamed for a mistake they didn't commit. I knew the truth, and I had the opportunity to speak up. But I hesitated, convincing myself that it wasn't my place and that intervening could jeopardize my position. The fear of standing out silenced me. Watching my colleague endure unwarranted criticism felt like watching a slow-motion betrayal, not just of them, but of my own values. The guilt of my inaction stayed with me, and I realized that by prioritizing my own comfort, I had failed them and failed myself. Over time, I learned that silence in the face of injustice is a betrayal not only of the victim, but also of the integrity we claim to uphold. Fighting injustice doesn't always require dramatic gestures or heroic actions. Sometimes it's about the small but courageous moments, speaking the truth in a meeting, standing by someone when they're unfairly attacked, or simply refusing to be a bystander. These seemingly small acts ripple outward, fostering trust and empowering others to do the same. Stoic philosophy teaches us that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about acting in spite of fear. Injustice thrives when good people say nothing. Choosing silence might feel safe in the moment, but it undermines our character and enables harm to continue. The next time you witness an injustice, ask yourself, is my comfort more important than someone else's dignity? Is my fear of conflict worth the cost of allowing harm to go unchallenged? The lessons from this are clear. First, standing up against injustice builds moral character and strengthens the bonds of trust in a community. People remember those who defend what's right, even when it's difficult. Second, Our courage inspires others. Every act of standing up to injustice lights a path for others to follow. Lastly, silence can never buy peace. True peace comes from the presence of justice, not its absence. Remember, speaking out against injustice isn't just an act of bravery, it's an act of humanity. Injustice may thrive in darkness, but even a small light can drive it away. You don't need to change the world in a single act, but by choosing to speak up, you take a stand that has the power to ripple outward, creating a world that's just a little bit brighter for everyone. Situation 2. When your boundaries are being crossed. Boundaries are not just personal preferences. They are the invisible lines that define respect, trust, and integrity in any relationship. When someone crosses those lines, remaining silent sends a dangerous message that your limits are negotiable, that your comfort and dignity are secondary to their desires. The Stoics teach us to honor our own values and not let external forces dictate our sense of self. As Epictetus said, "No one is free who is not master of himself." Defending your boundaries is not an act of hostility, but an act of self-respect. It's a lesson in teaching others how to treat you. I once had a relative who consistently borrowed money without returning it, always accompanied by heartfelt promises to pay me back soon. At first, I rationalized their behavior, convincing myself that helping family was my duty. But over time, their requests became more frequent and the amounts grew larger. I began to feel resentment not just because of the financial burden, but because I realized they were taking advantage of my kindness. Finally, after yet another request, I decided to confront the issue. I explained that while I cared about them deeply, I could no longer lend them money without accountability. I set a clear boundary, stating that I was willing to help in other ways, but not financially. They were hurt and defensive at first, but eventually they acknowledged my perspective. It was not an easy conversation, but it allowed me to protect my financial stability and preserve our relationship on healthier terms. This situation revealed a profound truth. Failing to enforce boundaries can lead to exploitation and fractured relationships. When we allow others to repeatedly cross our lines, we compromise not only our principles, but also the foundation of mutual respect. Stoicism reminds us that we are responsible for how we allow others to treat us. Setting boundaries is not about rejecting others, but about affirming your self-worth and demanding that interactions be built on fairness and respect. The way you communicate your boundaries is crucial. Deliver your message with firmness, but also empathy, ensuring that your intentions are clear without being confrontational. Explain how the behavior impacts you and outline the changes you need to see. This approach fosters understanding and avoids unnecessary conflict, allowing both parties to move forward with clarity and mutual respect. Boundaries are not about shutting people out. They are about protecting what matters most to you. By speaking up when your boundaries are crossed, you send a powerful message. You value yourself and expect others to do the same. As Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Instead of harboring bitterness or avoiding the issue, respond with confidence and integrity. In doing so, you not only safeguard your own well-being, but also create healthier, more respectful relationships where trust and understanding can truly flourish. Situation 3. When honesty is needed to uphold integrity. Honesty is the backbone of integrity, yet in moments of discomfort, it's often the first thing we sacrifice. Staying silent when the truth is needed isn't just avoiding conflict, it's actively compromising your own principles. Stoic philosophy places immense value on living in alignment with virtue, and honesty is a cornerstone of that alignment. As Marcus Aurelius once said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." But what about when silence becomes the lie? When withholding the truth allows deception or harm to persist? Silence becomes a betrayal not just of others, but of yourself. I once faced a moment in my career that tested my commitment to honesty. During a team meeting, a superior presented a report with glaring inaccuracies. The errors weren't intentional, but they painted a misleading picture that could have significant consequences. Everyone in the room noticed, but no one spoke up. I could feel the weight of silence pressing down, each second making it harder to act. My instinct was to stay quiet, to avoid confrontation, to let someone else handle it. But I knew that if I didn't speak, the report would go unchallenged, and my silence would make me complicit. Summoning my courage, I pointed out the errors, carefully and respectfully. The reaction was tense, but ultimately the team corrected the mistakes and the project moved forward with integrity and tact. That experience taught me that honesty, while uncomfortable in the moment, is what upholds the long-term trust and respect of those around you. Stoicism reminds us that courage and honesty are intertwined. To be honest when it's easy is no great feat. To be honest when it's difficult is a true measure of character. People respect those who are willing to stand in the light of truth even when it casts uncomfortable shadows. But honesty doesn't mean brutal candor or unnecessary harshness. It means having the courage to say what is necessary with compassion and respect. It's not about exposing others for the sake of self-righteousness. It's about fostering clarity and authenticity. When you choose honesty, you set a standard for yourself and those around you. You create an environment where integrity thrives and deceit withers. So the next time you face a situation where the truth is at stake, remember this. Your silence may preserve temporary harmony, but it will erode the foundation of trust over time. Upholding honesty is not always about winning arguments or proving a point. It's about staying true to yourself and what you stand for. In a world where truth is often blurred by convenience and fear, your commitment to honesty can be a guiding light both for yourself and for others. As the Stoics teach, living virtuously isn't always easy, but it is always worth it. Speak up when the truth is needed, and let your honesty be the foundation of your integrity. Situation 4. When a mistake needs correction. Mistakes left unaddressed have a way of growing into larger problems. Like cracks in a dam, they may seem small at first, but can eventually cause catastrophic failure. Correcting a mistake isn't about pointing fingers or assigning blame. It's about preserving the integrity of the whole. Stoic philosophy teaches us the importance of courage and accountability, especially in situations where staying silent might seem more convenient. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "What stands in the way becomes the way." In the context of mistakes, this means that addressing errors directly is not an obstacle, but the path to progress. There was a time early in my career when a critical error was overlooked during a team presentation. It was a minor detail in the moment, a miscalculation on a report that seemed insignificant. But I realized that if left uncorrected, it could lead to a series of faulty decisions. I hesitated, weighing the discomfort of speaking up against the potential consequences of staying silent. In that moment, I remembered the words of Epictetus, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." With that in mind, I raised my hand and politely pointed out the error. The room fell silent. I could feel the weight of all eyes on me. But then, something remarkable happened. Instead of defensiveness or embarrassment, there was gratitude. The team leader thanked me for my attention to detail, and we quickly worked together to rectify the mistake. This experience taught me a valuable lesson. Correcting mistakes early prevents larger problems down the line. It's not about being right. It's about doing right by the team, the project, and ultimately, ourselves. In professional settings, studies have shown that teams that encourage open communication about errors tend to perform better in the long run. A 2018 study published in the Journal of Management found that teams with a psychological safety to discuss mistakes without fear of reprisal were more innovative and effective. But this principle extends beyond the workplace. In our personal lives, relationships, and communities, the willingness to address mistakes head-on can prevent misunderstandings from festering into resentments. So how do we cultivate the courage to speak up when we notice a mistake? 1. Focus on the solution, not the blame. When pointing out an error, frame it in terms of how it can be fixed, not who is at fault. 2. Choose the right time and place. If possible, address the issue privately first, especially if it involves someone's personal mistake. 3. Be specific and factual. Avoid generalizations or emotional language. Stick to the concrete details of what went wrong and how it can be corrected. 4th, offer to be part of the solution. Don't just point out the problem, be willing to help fix it. 5. Remember the bigger picture. Remind yourself and others that correcting mistakes is about improving outcomes for everyone, not personal criticism. By embracing this approach, We create an environment where mistakes are seen not as failures, but as opportunities for growth and improvement. We foster a culture of continuous learning and mutual support. Remember, silence in the face of mistakes is not kindness, it's a disservice. True kindness lies in having the courage to speak up, even when it's uncomfortable, because you care about the ultimate outcome and the people involved. As we navigate this complex world, let's commit to being the kind of people who have the strength to address mistakes constructively. In doing so, we not only prevent larger problems, but also build stronger, more resilient relationships and communities. Situation 5. When your voice can inspire change. There are moments in life when your unique perspective, your lived experience, or your expertise puts you in a position to inspire meaningful change. In these moments, silence isn't just a missed opportunity, it's an abdication of responsibility. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once said, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." When it comes to inspiring change, I believe that luck is what happens when courage meets the moment. I'm reminded of a pivotal moment in my own life when I realized the power of speaking up for change. I was working in a large corporation, and I noticed a pattern of unconscious bias in our hiring practices. It wasn't overt discrimination, but subtle preferences that were leading to a lack of diversity in our teams. At first, I told myself it wasn't my place to say anything. I wasn't in HR after all. But the more I observed, the more I realized that my silence was part of the problem. I had data, I had observations, and I had ideas for improvement. What I lacked was the courage to voice them. After weeks of internal debate, I finally scheduled a meeting with our department head. I was nervous, but I reminded myself of the words of Marcus Aurelius: "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." To my surprise, my concerns were met not with defensiveness, but with genuine interest. That conversation sparked a company-wide initiative to review and improve our hiring practices. Within a year, we saw a significant increase in the diversity of our new hires, bringing fresh perspectives and talents to our teams. This experience taught me that our voices have more power than we often realize. When we speak up with intention and respect, we can plant seeds of change that grow far beyond our initial expectations. But inspiring change isn't just about grand gestures or corporate initiatives. It happens in small moments, too. It's the parent who speaks up at a school board meeting about the need for more inclusive curricula. It's the neighbor who proposes a community garden to address local food insecurity. It's the student who challenges outdated policies and pushes for more sustainable practices on campus. Research backs up the power of these individual voices. A 2019 study published in the journal Science found that when just 25% of people in a group adopt a new norm, it creates a tipping point where the entire group follows. Your voice combined with others can create a chorus powerful enough to shift entire systems. So how do we cultivate the courage to be that voice of change? 1. Educate yourself. Before speaking up, make sure you understand the issue deeply. Research, listen to diverse perspectives, and gather data to support your position. 2. Start small. You don't have to change the world overnight. Begin with your immediate sphere of influence, your team, your family, your local community. 3. Build alliances. Find others who share your concerns. There's strength in numbers, and collaborative efforts often have more impact than solo missions. Practice resilience. Change rarely happens overnight. Be prepared for setbacks and resistance, but don't let them silence you. As Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." 5. Lead by example. Embody the change you want to see. Your actions will lend credibility to your words and inspire others to follow suit. 6. Be open to dialogue. Remember that inspiring change isn't about imposing your will, but about opening conversations and finding collaborative solutions. 7. Celebrate small victories. Recognize and appreciate every step forward, no matter how small. This will help maintain momentum and motivation. When we choose to speak up and inspire change, we're not just improving our immediate circumstances. We're setting in motion ripples that can transform entire communities and even societies. History is filled with examples of individuals whose voices sparked movements that changed the world. Think of Rosa Parks, whose refusal to give up her bus seat became a catalyst for the civil rights movement. Or Rachel Carson, whose book Silent Spring launched the modern environmental movement. These were not people with extraordinary powers, but ordinary individuals who chose to use their voices at crucial moments. You may not see yourself as a Rosa Parks or a Rachel Carson, but I want you to consider this. Every great change in history started with one person deciding that silence was no longer an option. You have that same power within you. As we wrap up our exploration of these 5 critical situations where silence is not an option, I want to leave you with a challenge. In the coming week, I want you to identify one area in your life, personal or professional, where your voice could inspire positive change. It doesn't have to be something huge. Maybe it's suggesting a more efficient process at work, or proposing a new family tradition that better reflects your values. Whatever it is, I want you to commit to speaking up. Plan what you'll say, gather your courage, and make your voice heard. Remember, you're not just speaking for yourself. You're speaking for everyone who might benefit from the change you inspire.